All right. Welcome everyone to the InstructLab weekly community meeting. We missed the last week's meeting because some of us were traveling and stuff. But glad to see so many people here today. We'll start with some housekeeping items. And first of all, thanks to JJ for doing the control and the organizing of the meeting today. So, and we'll start with welcoming everyone. And all the meetings are governed by our InstructLab Community Code of Conduct. As you can see, the link is there in the meeting notes if you would like to check it out. Also, we record our meetings and post them to the InstructLab YouTube channel. So you do have an option to turn off your camera if you don't wish to be on camera, and also even dial in via phone if you prefer, that to join by that way. If you want to comment or ask questions during the meeting, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, just find an opportunity to speak up, that's fine. And we use the Google Meet chat to chat as well. So again, if you prefer not to speak up, you want to use the text chat, you can do that, and we will share the chat transcript after the meeting. We also have at the end of each meeting notes a place for you to put your name and GitHub link if you wish. It's optional. Feel free to do so if you like to do that. All right, let's get the meeting started. So this week we have a few new videos to take a look at. The first one is by JJ. It's demoing the briefcase from Beware to build and install InstructLab. And currently it's only for Mac, is that correct?
Yeah. Well, the best part about, if you don't know what Beware is, it's they come from, it's an open source project from Conda, where they've attempted to build a way to package Python apps in a very straightforward manner. There's some really great presentations about it, and it turns out it's a cross operating system. So you can use the same kind of build process and the same kind of commands to be able to build for Mac, Windows, and Linux to create single binary installers of Python apps. It's normally designed for GUI applications. They have their own GUI framework called Tonga, but they also have command line abilities, and that's what I did here. So if you take a little watch on, it's 8 minutes long, you kind of see the whole process of what I've created. And the idea is it's, frankly speaking, pip install InstructLab is great for developers, horrible for normies, right? Like as soon as you say, hey, you need to create a virtual environment to install InstructLab, we've already lost, right? And we need a way to double click to install. So this is the way that'll happen. And I'll just throw it to Neil saying yesterday, in the process of getting it working with the double click installer, which by the way is the next link there. We discovered that we could be able to run the UI that they'll be showing here in a little bit with it too, which is going to be pretty cool. I'm going to cheat here and just go ahead and bring up this little website.
Go ahead.
So, whoops, right here. So this is just it right now. I created a simple static site for it, but here is an actual link to the package, and it's going to be building off a stable. Right now, it's for the Mac M processor, but I have an x86 here that I'm going to try to build today also, and then I even have a Windows machine. So my idea is to add Mac OS, x86, and Windows down here also as installers for InstructLab 2. And then when 18 comes out also, I'll be able to just add it as another release. And then my ultimate goal is to be able to create something like this off of our main website. So you can just do a curl against it and it'll figure it out and install the package for us. So we don't have to, again, don't have to worry about pip install. So yeah, absolutely true, BJ. I'll have to be careful that those compile options. From what I can tell, as long as it just does the vanilla pip install, we'll see how it goes. But I'll do some testing around it too. But again, I'm trying to do this right.
Yeah, I think you're going to need to disable a bunch of them, since it's going to, otherwise it'll fail horribly on somebody's system, because each Intel processor is slightly different than all the other ones, so they all work, various things. For x86, are you going to do CPU only, or is this for CUDA?
Right now, I'm just going to do CPU only, and I'll make that clear in it too. This is mainly just so you can run InstructLab locally, right? Because as we start going down deeper and deeper into the different options, right, there's going to be that's a branching tree of all the stuff you can do. My goal is just for you to be able to run InstructLab locally without having to deal with Python, right? So if you decide to use iLab model chat or iLab model serve, then that's the goal out of this for right now. Right. I'm only one human, and I'm not a release engineer, right? So this is me just trying to figure all this stuff out.
Right. You just need to make sure that you set the user's expectations correctly about the x86 version, because it's not gonna be in any way speedy.
Yeah, and that's expected. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, kind of following on what BJ is saying here, from experience in open source communities, I think this is really, really nice. The only thing with it is when you put this up here and you put the different installers for the different OSs and architectures, all of a sudden then people will assume you're supporting this. So there's two aspects to that. Is number one, keeping up with each release that comes out. And the second one then is, and I think BJ touched on it, there can be problems running. So it's great to say you have these different installers, but if somebody can't go end to end and things don't work, then issues start coming up all over the place. So the final part of this question is, and sorry, it's probably multifaceted list of questions and thoughts off the top of my head, is that is the InstructLab community going to support this? And can they support this? And it may potentially open a can of worms. So yeah, there's a lot to chew on there. But in the past, we've done things in communities to help users, and then all of a sudden it's blown up, and there's been finger pointing, and you put this out here, you don't support this now. Those kind of things start. So sometimes the more you help people, the more they expect from you. So just a few points there to take on board.
Absolutely. And that's one reason why it's under my name right now, right? it's under JJ's doing this as a side thing. So I was just setting it up so if we decide to go down this path as a project, somebody's at least walked down this path and found a way to get it working. And obviously we're going to need a full release, like the whole release team in general will end up having to own this most likely, because this will be something that I can see the downstream projects that we're touching also might want to be able to leverage also. I'm just being a first man on the beach kind of situation here. I'm going to do the best I can to support it going forward, but again, I'm not a release engineer, right? I'm just doing the open source work here, but I completely understand what you're saying. Suma.
I actually got excited and I pulled it down and I installed it. But one thing that that's confusing, I don't know where it installed it, because I'm not able to launch it as an application. So I ran, let me show you my screen.
It's the iLab command will be working in your terminal now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's so it installs it under /library InstructLab.
Okay.
And then it's a completely self-contained container, if you will. of InstructLab, and then it gives you the iLab command on your command line.
You
Okay.
add it to the path.
Yep, it adds your path down automatically.
Oh, I already had iLab on this device, but yeah, okay.
So the challenge is if hopefully you're running iLab in a virtual environment, right?
Yeah.
So if you open up another terminal
Okay.
away from everything,
Okay.
and then you should have iLab running in that terminal now, so you do not need a virtual environment.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. One small, very small finding I have is when you install, by default, the installer asks you to change gives you the option to change the installation location, but you cannot really do that. So if we can disable that, or
I couldn't figure out that one actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is exciting. Thank you for sharing.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, JJ.
Thank you.
Yes, Suma.
No, I was trying to lower it. I didn't realize it automatically.
No worries. All right. So the second video is by Grant, and it's about installing and using an older version of the InstructLab CLI. So if you want to, for some reason, go back to, say, 0.16 or something, you can do that with the example shown by Grant. Following that, well, this is the same the InstructLab package as we discussed, as JJ mentioned. That's the link to that, so you can check it out, download it, try to like Suma already did, tried it out, and
Yeah, it works.
yes, let JJ know if you have any comments or feedback. Cool. Okay, are we ready for a nice UI demo, Anil or Brent?
Hey, sure.
Yes,
Hey,
Brent.
super quick question for JJ. I assume we could just automate that in CI, right?
So I started playing with the idea of doing that, and I learned a lot about Mac signing
Oh yeah,
yesterday.
it's a nightmare. It's
Yeah.
an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So I have automated that before, so maybe we can
Yeah.
torture together.
Yes, I would love that. Also, because and the x86 conversation is also a much larger one, as BJ was alluding to. So I don't know if we want to even build that for that too. But I do want to build an MSI, which I have a little Windows box over here that, or a little Windows laptop that I was going to try to do. I spent also the $100 on getting the Apple
developer. Yeah. Okay, good.
yesterday too. Which also brings up a conversation like if we decide to go down this path, we need a enterprise license for InstructLab because right now it's literally like it's under my namespace, it's under me. It's me saying that this is my package giving to you so you can do this thing, right? Which cool for now, but when we want to talk to larger people more than us just sitting in this room, we're gonna need to do something there. So I don't know how we're gonna figure out how to do that. But yes, I would love to absolutely. Like, I have a dream of as soon as you move the stable, like we have an automatic job running every single day, right? And we have a nightly build just if you want to be crazy and get nightly. And then when as soon as they see the bot sees that the stable branch is moved to change the SHA, it kicks off the build process and dumps 3 out and then puts it out to a static site. And then now we're just done, right? Like that's literally all I was hoping to get done with this. But all the signing and all that jazz is a little bit more complex. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry. I get kind of...
Yeah, for sure. And then like RPMs and Debian packaging too.
The briefcase does that absolutely easily with this too. So you can absolutely just do If I had a, yes, that's the best part about briefcase is it does all these things for us. So.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Who's going to share the screen? Because I need to.
I have one more question, please. JJ, does it also pull down the default taxonomy?
Oh, yes. Actually, it does.
And where does the taxonomy sit?
It goes in .config, in your home directory, .config, InstructLab.
Okay.
It pulls everything down into that location. Obviously, I need to write some better documentation around this stuff, but I wanted to prove that it works before anything. So yeah, you'll see everything in there.
Okay.
When you get it.
Great.
Yeah, it'd be cool to get it. So sorry, super quick. So like when let's say you're using Launchpad and you're gonna push a Debian package, right? Like you have to push the binary. Like you can't just push a package. But I've got
Wait.
templates for it. So like
Sorry, what do you mean by?
if somebody wanted to do like, let's say, like RPM install from a web repo or apt-get install. So like you can install a custom repository, right?
Mhm.
That's like living on Launchpad or whatever if it's Ubuntu or so you have to push up. You'll still have to push a binary. It like doesn't let you just push a package.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are things to think through. But we've all gone through that and had notes, and like that's a half-day job. I think we can do that if you're interested there too. Just get the repository set up.
Yes. Yes.
I don't find it in my .config. Sorry. You said it's in my root.config, right?
Your home directory.
Okay.
Oh,
My home
sorry.
.config.
So if you watch the video, what actually builds the .config stuff is that iLab bar. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Um,
I will watch the video.
yeah.
I know we have a lot of things.
Yeah. I did not release the iLab bar. I just released the InstructLab installation.
Okay.
Yes. So if you sorry, I completely misspoke there. So I was originally trying to release two different things at the same time. InstructLab and then iLab bar, which is built
Okay.
off of something Gabe made,
Okay.
which was to control OLAMA, but also a way to control. We forked it and created a way to control iLab model serve from the title bar inside of your Mac, which we quickly realized you couldn't add that to this package because it's another thing on top of this. But then we started building this whole kind of basically desktop experience
Okay.
with this little project, which turned into something completely not what originally I was going for, but out of kind of scope of what I wanted to release for, I guess, today. But if we get Brent and Anil on sharing their screen, you'll be able to see a very good opportunity real soon, very quickly here. So who
Sounds
wants to share the screen?
Yeah, JJ, can you give it to me, and then later we can transfer it to Brent.
And no, actually, hold on. I don't maybe what? Hang on, I'm trying to figure this out. No. Make a co-host. There you go.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Thank you, JJ. Hopefully everybody can see the screen.
Yes.
Perfect. It's a nice segue after JJ's demo. Hopefully we'll see something interesting, between both of these projects that we can cook up. So myself, Anil Vishnoi, I have with me Brent, and we are going to talk about this InstructLab UI project. There is the link if anybody want to check it out, what cool new stuff we are cooking there. So I'm just going to go through a couple of slides there just to set the context of what we are doing, why we are doing, and how we are doing. And all of these things can possibly change in the future. So just start with InstructLab, right? The goal of the InstructLab was to kind of provide a platform and tools so that, contributors can do inferencing, serving with any LLM model theoretically. It also provides a platform and tool to train the LLM models with your own data and do it in open source. I don't want to go to deeper goals of this lab, but just keep that in mind because I want to keep it as simple as just to get set the context of the UI project. So we have basically three kind of major part in the workflow. One is model inferencing and serving, where basically we go and ask, does this model has, for example, a question is skill to solve a puzzle, right? And then once we figure out, yeah, looks like not, let me teach the model how to solve the puzzle, right? And then we say, okay, now I have a skill, I wrote it, I trained my model, and looks like now it's doing better job at solving the puzzle, right? So these are the three scenarios, mostly what we are trying to address with the InstructLab. Have a high level categorization, we call, just model inferencing. Then if the skill and knowledge is not there with the model, is not smart enough, then we kind of do a contributions of our data and knowledge and skill to make it smarter. Then we kind of train it and we see how this model works, right? So that's the major three, high level blocks I can possibly divide this thing. Now, uh, next thing is that those were all the workflow thing. Now, what is our expectation from these workflow, right? Uh, First thing is contributor need to know what is lacking, right? You need to provide a mechanism so that user can go and say, okay, this skill is lacking, this knowledge is lacking, okay, and they need to somehow figure it out, whether you provide some way or they kind of go and deploy all the dev tools and everything to figure out what is lacking in the model, right? From a GitHub contribution perspective, we are expecting that more the contribution, smarter the model. So if we get more data, more skills, more knowledge, the model is going to be smarter. And skill and knowledge are kind of a global phenomenon. You can't just rely on devs. It can be from any corner of the organization, possibly in this world, right? I don't doubt that a learned farmer can contribute skill about agriculture as well, right? So it's so wide spectrum of contributors that we're looking for here. And then once we have all this data, we need to make sure that there's some way to handle this scale so that we can kind of, train with this model with this new set of skills and knowledge, and publish the new models, right? And possibly anybody can replicate that model training and hosting part of it, right? And nobody gets smarter without training, but it has costs, right? Whether it's a time or a money, right? So those were kind of expectation from these high-level categorization. If I say inferencing, contribution, and training, now what are the challenges, right? When it comes to inferencing, you need a machine where you can run this system and set up. And not everybody has the resources. Like GPUs are costly, and not everybody has it. It's like you can't just go and say, okay, buy this $5,000 machine and you can do the inferencing. That's not everybody's case, right? Devs probably do have big machines, but not everybody, right? People tend to go, except devs, people tend to go with lighter, laptops, and they are not that powerful. Or a skill to deploy the local environment for inferencing. For example, pip install InstructLab looks pretty easy to do, but a lot of people might not know what is pip and what is install and what is even InstructLab, right? So that is a big challenge when it comes to, we are talking about contributors in a wide spectrum. For example, and if you put like, oh, they need to have a skill and they need to have a resources, that is kind of putting a big expectation, and that will not tempt wider set of audience. Sales representative for a representative in org might not want to learn YAML, right? So that is the challenge with the inferencing and hosting something locally to serve the model, right? GitHub contributions, not everybody knows GitHub and YAML. That's a first level challenge, right? And that requires, and if they don't know it and they still want to contribute, it requires a lot of hand holding, which is time consuming and slow for the people who are actually doing the hand holding. And somebody need to manage these contributions, whether they are good and bad. So somebody's time is getting consumed in managing these GitHub contributions, right? And when it comes to, once, for example, we sorted out all the GitHub contribution story, and then we need to kind of make sure, that they can train and host somewhere. Not everybody has resources, just like modern inferencing and serving, or it's cool to deploy the local environment for inferencing and training. And the one example, and this is not something we are making up in the air from hand waving here. Uh, this is one example I kind of picked up, from one of our summit happened. A lot of contribution came, and JJ need to go through like what 200 plus PR to kind of keep saying please fix the linting issues. And then you see a lot of linting, DCO sign off, and you see that happen. The 200 probably seems less, but it's iterative job, and that's not where TRIs should spend their time, right? Their work is to evaluate the PR contribution and make sure the quality is good, and they help with the real, crux of the PR rather than logistic issues. So there was some good learning point from that exercise and what we can improve, and that led to thinking about how we can solve this problem. For example, model inferencing. How about a simple chatbot where user can go and talk to the existing trained model that is hosted somewhere, and which is trained over the existing contributions, and see whether it has the skill or knowledge or not. When it comes to GitHub contribution, how about a simple form where just user go and fill it up, okay, and UI will take care of rest of this stuff. It will deal with the tools that they don't want to interact with, like GitHub and YAML. How about for model training and hosting, how about a UI button where you say train, you press it, it goes spawn a dev environment for you, start training the model with your contributions, and once the model is trained, it hosts somewhere, and you can just go and inference and serve with that, right? It's pretty ambitious, the last part. And currently we are brainstorming phase how to do these things. There are options, but the option that JJ presented, that probably will simplify the things very well. Even much people has a machine which is Mac, you can automate it pretty much. You can just go and install everything, serve it, and then train it and serve it. So it can be very much automated where user don't even have to go and look. It's like what is happening behind the curtain, right? They just need to deal with, okay, I'm trying to see this skill is there or not. If not, I put my skill and somebody is training it, and again I see, oh, everything is working fine because the new skill is there and it's responding better. So with this idea, we kind of started with the UI, and see, that seems like a very simple answer, but the intent here is to provide a simple interface. As of now, we think it's UI, but it can be anything. That's where we are trying to iterate through this process and see if what makes more sense, what is more simpler, and bring that to the community users so they don't have to deal with the complexity of this thing and focus on contributions. That leads to a demo. So we currently have a demo host, not demo, but our UI stack is currently hosted at qa.ui.instructlab.ai. As of now, we kind of have a controlled access to this. So we have an inviter. If anybody want to try it, please, feel free to send your GitHub email ID to me or Brent or JJ, and we are going to invite you this to the organization that we created for this particular stack. And once you are in the org, you can access qa.ui.instructlab.ai features, and you can use what all kind of we provide through that UI. That's pretty much from my side. Brent, is your turn now. So Brent is going to show you some magical stuff that we are cooking in InstructLab UI, and hopefully that's going to be a more interesting piece in this demo. How do I transfer? Stop sharing. Oh, before I switch, anybody has any question, please feel free to ask. JJ, can you switch it to Brent or? Okay.
Try sharing here. I'm gonna clip my camera just in case there's a delay there. Can everybody see my screen okay? Does it see it resizing? There's a Hangout bug here recently that
Looks good.
okay, thanks. So yeah, thanks, Anil. Yeah, JJ's presentation is pretty exciting because it definitely got me thinking, like, I'm on a Mac, do a brew install. Now I've got ILab up and running. Now, how do I interact with it locally? So we've got some thoughts on that as well. To start with, so as Anil said, we'll paste instructions in the chat. It would be amazing to get some feedback from anybody, because we're definitely looking to go live with this sooner rather than later. We also have an auto inviter, so we'll put in all the details for that. So right now we have OAuth. You just click here, this tiny little button that in Patternfly we can't figure out how to resize. So Let me preface this with we're all, most of the people that are working on this are like networking or platform people. We just saw a gap and something that was needed. So we're doing UI work. So anybody that has UI experience or opinions on it, please come join us. We've got a UI channel. The look of this will absolutely change. We need to improve CSS and all that kind of stuff. But what we're trying to get are the bare bones of how do we make this process easier. When we started this a little while, I think when we first tried InstructLab, it's like, you know, everybody had the pains of submissions. You know, like if you're a domain expert, you should be able to make a contribution without having to understand Git or have Git set up or anything like that. So that's was our kind of initial goal here. We also have chat functionality. We'll just go down the list here. So let's start out with, I'm a user and I want to make a knowledge submission. So these are all the forms. So we're going to fill out the form and it's going to plug into, it's going to create the YAML and create all the PRs required to do the submission. So let's put in topic, fluffy kittens, kitties. The rest of it, I'm just going to do gibberish. So file path. This is something that still isn't great because you still have to envision what your taxonomy path is, and if you're a user, that's not necessarily an easy thing. So we're working on some viewing capabilities of the taxonomy tree itself, so that it'll be super simple from here to kind of plug in to, you know, look at existing submissions and plug in an appropriate path. So I'm just gonna do that. So yeah, like Anil's got a cool PR kind of where it'll, you know, show what's there. So each layer to kind of get a feel for where that should fit in, and then eventually creating your own directory.
Yeah. So next meeting, I'll show you something more cooler. So
Sweet.
yeah, you don't have to deal with any taxonomy tree, where to put my skill. You just, from this box itself, you should be able to choose where you want to put your skill and knowledge. So no need to worry about the whole directory structure, going to GitHub, looking at your appropriate location and all that. So so the idea is the user don't have to go anywhere, just go through this form and they should be able to submit their skill. They don't have to go anywhere. That's their view. And through that, they should be able to contribute, understand what they're contributing, and just push the button.
Yeah, that's going to be killer. Just filling this out. And so now we get to, since this is a knowledge submission, we've got a document component. So this gets really kind of gnarly as far as, you know, so currently you would have to say, okay, here is my, I'm gonna take this markdown and I'm gonna upload it to some GitHub repo. Again, if you're a lawyer or a bioengineer or whatever your discipline, whatever your domain expertise is, you're probably not going to want to have to go figure out how to create a GitHub repo, get a SHA, and then format all of that. So what we've done is added an uploader. So here I'm going to upload this markdown. I'm going to load it into this. I could do multiple ones. I could add 10, 20, whatever I want. I'm just going to do one for the sake of the demo. Then I'm going to submit that. So what's happening in the background is we've got a parent template repo that's in the same public organization. So it's cloned it to my local repo, sorry, to my local account. So now here's that file uploaded into a fork of that repo. So we don't store the documents in upstream because A, it's just abusing GitHub as an object store, which is gross. But B, we don't want liability if somebody was, you know, uploading copywritten or private information that shouldn't be exposed. So it helps pass legal hurdles there. So now I've got this markdown file in my repo, and more importantly, it's now filled out the location of it. the SHA of the commit, and then the file name with a unique appendage, so we kind of know this was when it was submitted, and we've got a timestamp there. So this allows a triager to go out and review what's being submitted as part of it as well. So that's the importance of having that location with a SHA attached to it. And so now we've got this complete form filled out. So if we want to say, okay, maybe I just want the YAML itself, right? So I'm gonna, I've got it all here. If I change it, it'll, be reflected also in there. So now I've got that change. Another thing it does, so multi-line YAML is kind of a nightmare. So let's do a big long line of YAMLs, of text. And so now I've got, proper formatted markdown in there. Let's say I want to do markdown that has a bunch of return spaces in it. Shift return, shift return. Now we go back and it's properly done that with a pipe and a hyphen. So far we haven't found anything that doesn't get formatted properly. We've got it tuned in to pass all the linting from the schema, and it looks pretty good to go. So now we just want to submit that. Oh, good thing. So make sure all the fields are filled. So I left out a field somewhere. I didn't put my name. Perfect. So now that passed, and now it's created the PR. I can now go out, I can look at my files that have changed. So here's my submission, and then here's the supporting document along with it for the knowledge. And now I can watch the YAML went. And in a second, that'll pass, and it'll put a label on there. So now I've got this label. Refresh it. Oh yeah, there we go. So now I've got a knowledge label. So as part of the CI, it's recognized that it's a knowledge. Please. Sorry, I can't see the screen. If anybody, just jump in if you have any questions or comments, please. Just refreshing here. Let's make sure this is the one I just submitted, 7/16, 10/40. Yeah, okay, cool. So this is the one I just submitted, so I can click it there and see the PR. Now let's say a triager is giving me some feedback, change something in my submission because it wasn't done as wanted. So one thing, if you'll notice, I'm having to put my name and email again. That's because GitHub doesn't require certain fields. So you could have a name or you could have an email that's not associated to it. We need that so we can do a DCO sign off. So that's the one thing on edit that doesn't get pre-populated, but everything else is in there and pre-populated. So I'm going to go back and change that. And let's say I want to add another a 6 Q&A. So I'm going to resubmit that. I'm going to update my knowledge submission. And let's go back and look at changes. And as we can see, there is the 6th one I just added there. So there's the new Q&A. So that is about it on submission. So we've got the same thing for skill. So either one. I just did the knowledge one because it's got the document component that can be super painful. Any questions on that before we move on to the chat component? Awesome. Cool. So another thing that so we can all run iLab serve and get the quantized model. Let's say you want actually to talk to the real model. We probably don't have an A100 sitting around to run the model on for inference. So here we have a backend full quantized model of Granite 7B and Merlinite 7B. So it's as simple as here's one we use to check for sanity, tell me about sparrows. And now I'm talking to this backend fully non-quantized model. If I want to change that to Merlinite, I can clear it, or I can keep the text history there. And now I'm talking to Merlinite. If I want to copy it, I can copy it. So yeah, so you've got the ability to talk to like the full-blown model being served. One other thing that we added is, let's say I'm running iLab serve locally. So while this part is a server-side render, meaning the server is the only one that has actual access to that model. So this isn't something that's exposed to the world that everybody can talk to. It's going through the server. So the server is sourcing the actual request from the server side. But let's say I've got, I've got any OpenAI API model that I want to talk to. All I would do is go down to custom model endpoints. I would define wherever that endpoint lives. In this case, it's on my local machine, running on port 8000. And I'll just give it a name, local model. I don't have a key on it. If I did, you just pop it in there. So now I've defined that. Now if I go back to chat, I can do a drop down. There's my local model. And this is a quantized version locally on my machine. And again, that could be an endpoint anywhere on the internet. So this part is a client side rendering. So it's being sourced from my machine. So anything I can reach could be, you're an enterprise and you've got a model running locally in your data center or on your laptop, either or. And in theory, it should be able to talk to, any OpenAI API. So it should, like, if you wanted to point it to OpenAI or something, to their API, that would work too. And that is it. So I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully that wasn't too much.
This is really cool. I can't wait to get my hands dirty with it.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam.
I actually wrote a very small chat implementation just for me to, organize the work I was doing on my local, because it was driving me nuts over time. I was losing track of what I had found and not found. So I'll post that link here. If there's anything that you find useful, please feel free to, leverage it.
Awesome. Yeah, and we don't have a database hooked up to it yet. That'll be part of our next hackathon, so that you could see where do you want chat history in there? Do you want there's lots of things that could be stored that could be of interest,
Yeah.
and like feedback from triagers. How much do we ever expect the user to go to GitHub? Those kind of things. Like, we're not looking to recreate GitHub by any means, but I think there's lots of things we can do to make the user's life easier and hopefully in turn make the user experience better with InstructLab.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Thanks. And
Right.
hats off to half the people in here that gave tons of feedback or code. So yeah, kudos to the triage stand up. If you want to know where the ideas and the user experience lives, it's there.
Yeah, thank you, Brent and Anil. That's really great. Suma, I remember you saying that your client thing has saves the chat history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps that's something you can help with.
Yeah, two things I found useful is saving the chat history and
Right.
organizing it into folders. So that's something that I've done. So, yeah. Maybe
Love
something.
it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so just to add some more information about the UI and where we hack. I think Slack channel, we have a UI channel, so feel free to jump over there. We have a community meeting tomorrow. It's every Wednesday, I believe 10 a.m. PST. It's in community calendar, so if you are subscribed to the community calendar, you should see it there. So if you have anything to contribute, any feedback, please feel free to jump there and hack with us.
Absolutely.
Cool. That's great. Thank you so much.
I thought I was subscribed to the community calendar, but I don't see it on my calendar right now. Can someone please share the link to subscribe once more? Sorry.
Do we need to kind of refresh if everybody add, and anytime we add a new meeting?
I think it depends on how you subscribed it. If you just added the
ICS, then you probably won't see,
yeah,
right?
I tend to do that.
yeah. So I think this is the link.
Thank you.
If you edit via this link, subscribe to it. At the bottom right corner, there's this @ sign. You add the actual calendar into your own, then it should reflect any updates.
Okay, thank you.
So meanwhile, I'll add you to, we have another calendar entry where we can add your email address so that in case the whole subscription don't work, you will have some entry in your calendar.
Thank you.
Great. Any more questions for Anil and Brent or about this topic?
I'm sure once some of us try it, we will have questions.
Perfect. All right. So is there anything else for today to talk about? Any topics since anybody would like to bring up?
I have an open if
Yeah, please.
you don't mind. It's my first time joining the meeting. So
Welcome.
I'd asked the question in the Slack, but I didn't get any responses. So I just thought I'd join the community meeting and kind of see how InstructLab is evolving. And it was a great demo, by the way. I think that GUIs can be really helpful because I'm still ramping up on this, so it's new to me. I was at the Red Hat Summit and did do the lab there. So I did get my first introduction that way. And I also ran into those linting issues, on the GitHub, where I had to go back and forth. And I did find that really frustrating because I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. It looked like everything lined up. Anyways, my question is I was going through your documentation and there's nothing about Windows support. And I was able to get it working in Windows by using Windows Subsystem for Linux and a Fedora image from Microsoft Store. But I saw that there's container images for AMD ROCm, for Intel Gaudi, and for the CUDA, but I didn't see any container images to run InstructLab for using an Intel GPU, like on a laptop. So my laptop is a Meteor Lake AI, they call it an AI PC, and it's got an Intel Arc GPU built into it. And I know that you can offload a lot of these things using Intel extensions for PyTorch to get the optimized GPU flow. And I was wondering if there's any plans to support Windows or if there's any instructions on how to set this up. I was going to try to start figuring out myself. I think I can just pip install the Intel extensions in the container, but I'm not sure how iLab would use them in the background. I don't know how the Python or PyTorch is actually constructed. So I know I said a lot, so I'll let you speak and talk about whatever the Windows plans are.
I'm
not sure there are Windows
Yeah.
plans at this point in time. I think they're geared mostly towards supporting, enterprise and the open source community. And in terms of like the productization, they're just not looking at that. They have specific forks of Torch for the hardware provided by the OEM vendors. So unless Intel provides them a specific version of Torch that works, I'm not sure that is a possibility there.
Yeah,
I'm sure it could work in a community setting. Like you could probably get something to work, just like supporting it for everything. I'm not sure.
What do you mean? I guess I don't understand the specific optimizations of Torch. You mean like that Intel extensions for PyTorch, like that specifically, or are you talking about every hardware vendor has their own PyTorch thing?
For the three hardware vendors we've been looking at, we have different versions of Torch, VLLM, like different productized forks that we are using to build from.
Oh, okay, got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think Brent just posted the link to the GPU acceleration page, right?
Oh, you did?
No, Brent posted the link to the GPU acceleration page. And I wrote something up on how I ran it on a Windows machine, but that was with the CUDA. Okay, so you may have to experiment a bit, try looking at both of these, because the first link has information around R, but that's for a Linux. And the second one has information on Windows, but that's for a CUDA. So you probably can experiment and try to come up with your own recipe.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would work because like I was able to get it to working in the Fedora Windows subsystem for Linux, and
Mhm.
Windows itself passes in a DXG device as your graphics driver. So like Linux is dev DRI, but in Windows subsystem for Linux, it's /dev DXG or DGX, or maybe, I don't know. It's one of those three letters combined. And that's how you can get a GPU into other things. So like with Podman Desktop, I'm able to use an Intel GPU when I'm doing inferencing, like if I run just a container specific type workload, as long as I pass that device in on the command line. So it seems like all the pieces are there. I'm just trying to figure out how to put them together.
Yeah, I did it on my regular command prompt. I didn't even try to do the Linux way, right? I just did it on my regular command prompt. And most of those steps would work except for when you need hardware acceleration in order to actually train the model and so on. That is when you would have to experiment with the ARC.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Do check that
Yeah.
link out and see if it helps.
And you
Yeah,
said the
I'll
last two
let
links?
Mark. Yes, it's in the chat. The links are in the chat. Do you see the chat window?
Yeah, I do. I'm looking. Is it
Okay.
from Carol?
Yeah. So the Brent shared a link that's with the GPU acceleration information, and I shared the
got it.
link from Suma's written up experience with Windows PC.
Oh, great.
And
I have
Mark,
one.
yeah, I'll let Mark chime in.
Well, I was just going to add that I have seen people working on Intel Gaudi and Intel PyTorch extension, but they're maybe doing it more for containers and definitely not for Windows. So all the things
Yeah.
you need should be there. It's just a question of whether they're exposed and bubbled up yet. And there is reluctance for any one person who works mostly on the Linux or Windows or Mac to say, yeah, we support Windows now, because we're not sure
Exactly.
we're going to keep it current, but I would expect it to eventually be solved.
Okay, but you said there's no plans at this time just to officially support Linux, like on the InstructLab instructions and community. Is that what I heard?
Oh,
Windows.
you said Linux, but you meant Windows,
I mean,
right?
Windows. Yes, yeah. Sorry.
I don't think anyone stepped up and said, yes, we have the right people to maintain Windows. Let's claim support.
Okay.
I've only heard the opposite. Like with JJ's MSI installer, I believe there was some feedback that said, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have that until we're sure we can support it.
That was good. Actually, give me my next question, because the first presentation was talking about a Windows installer. And
yeah, and it's, to me, it's an obvious thing that we need to do and will do. But like I said, if all the maintainers are like, I don't do that, then we have to figure out when we're ready.
But at some point, it might be good, because if you look at the population that uses Windows, that's a big number of people that we won't be reaching. So at some point, it might be prudent to consider it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Marty?
Yeah, I think probably from an open source perspective, the way to go around this is that somebody raises the request as an issue, and then that they go and work on it and they drive towards it. So Eric, in the past in open source communities I've worked in, is we haven't always necessarily have Windows support, but somebody has written up how we can work on Windows or whatever. So we may someday support it in the community, but we may not as well.
okay.
So I think that'll be a case of, these are probably the OSs we may support. I'm not saying we will or we won't. And then if there's additional stuff, then maybe it's not supported by the community, but someone that's in the community provides the capability to do stuff and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how it maps out. But at the moment, I presume, I suppose, really Mac and Linux has been the way we've been driving forward with.
Yeah, I mean, some companies like mine make us all use Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with Windows. I'm not making a judgment here,
Yeah.
and I've used all OSs, and I don't really care, really, to be honest, what the OS is. But I'm just saying at the moment, the concentrations around getting it working on Mac and so forth, and bringing another OS into it and trying to manage that and so forth isn't on the agenda at the moment as such. So, but if it's something you're willing to drive with yourself and you have the bandwidth to do that, yeah, please go for it, and maybe create a markdown or whatever showing the steps and how you got it to work or whatever on that, or any issues you have, then maybe come across and see how we can help you.
Okay. Yeah, getting it to work in the Windows subsystem for Linux with Fedora wasn't that much of an issue. I didn't try the actual testing the model out part because the instructions said that it doesn't work on Linux right now. So I didn't really want to go through that effort. It's just the acceleration part, whether it's, even if you're using this well, you wouldn't use Windows for the server part of it. But if you're doing local inferencing, a local GPU, or even an NPU, with the newer laptops makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can see now, why it's not something that's high up in the agenda of the community at the moment, because there's so many gotchas with it.
Yeah, exactly. I run into. It was like that first comment I heard. Someone said, if you have to set up a virtual environment, you've already lost. That's the first thing you have to do to get this working with Windows.
Right. Thanks, Eric, for the great question.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
it is time. So we had some great demos and great discussions. Thanks to everyone. We'll share the recording and the chat transcripts so you get all the information on the meeting notes document. And let's continue next week. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll sync up again soon. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. TJ, please stop the recording. Thank you very much.